As a salon or spa owner, cosmetology school gave you the skills to serve clients, but it definitely didn't teach you how to run a business. Somewhere along the way, you probably thought ownership would mean freedom, but instead you're working more hours than ever, barely paying yourself, and low-key worried everything's going to fall apart the second you step away. Welcome to the Beauty Biz Breakdown, where we give you the real strategies, systems, and structure that you need to fully step into the CEO seat in your beauty business. Hey friends, welcome back to the Beauty Biz Breakdown, the go-to podcast for salon and spa owners who are ready to build a more profitable, more predictable beauty business. I'm Brie, and as always, I've got the amazing Chandra here with me today. Hey girl,
Hello, hello.
how are you?
I'm doing really good. It's been a busy couple weeks, like always. I feel like that's what I always say, but I feel like that's what's always happening. So I'm sure other people can relate, but it's all good. I'm here and it's a good day.
Awesome. I mean, that's life, right? Like I feel like it goes by faster and faster and faster all
Yeah,
the time.
it does. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I was actually talking to my husband the other day and he said something about next year. And I was like, what the heck? What are you talking about? Like next year's forever away. And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, no. And I thought about it and he was like, babe, we're halfway through Q3. And I was like, what the crap? Like, how in the heck has this year gone by so freaking fast? I don't understand it at all.
Nope, I'm right there with you.
But I think since we're talking about that, I actually wanted to talk about Q4 today. So let's talk about that a little bit because I think that's really, really important to talk about. And I think when you hear Q4 on a podcast, everybody kind of, especially in our industry or business in general, they kind of go at Q4 the same way all the time, right? Like everybody prepares for it just the same way. But what if, for those of you out there listening, what if your Q4 this year could make you the most money that you've ever made in a Q4, but not make you feel like you've been hit by a bus when it's over? I'm sure that would make all of you extremely, extremely happy. So if that sounds good, stick around today because that's exactly what we're going to get into. All right. For those of you out there that know me, you know my brain comes up with some really, really crazy ideas. Chandra will vouch for this every second of the day. Some of those ideas are what we're going to talk about today in this episode. I'm going to be honest, these ideas, they, even in my own brain, sounded a little bit crazy. And I knew there was a chance that they may come back to bite me in the butt when I first created them last year. But to my surprise, they ended up working out really, really well, not only for myself, but for my team and my business. Here's one of the things that I feel like. I feel like every single year when Q4 starts getting close, salon and spa owners, they all start planning or thinking about all of the extra stuff that we're going to do, right? More promotions, more retail offers, more gift card offers, maybe adding more hours, definitely squeezing as many people in as we possibly can. It's just always more, 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 more. Chandra, would you agree that that's normally how people in our industry prepare for Q4? It's basically we know it's going to be busy, so how much more can we do?
Yeah, no, I think 100% that's what we do. We just focus on cramming as many people into the chair as possible. And that's all we focus on. And then, like you said, you drop at the end of it like you got hit by a bus.
You do, and it's a horrible feeling. So last year I started thinking and I was like, why is that always our go-to answer? You know, why do we take the exact same salon or spa that we run all year long and then just try to do more of everything for 3 months in a row? It's like we're literally setting ourselves up to be completely demolished physically, mentally, emotionally by the time Christmas gets here. I don't know why we do that to ourselves. One thing that the majority of us know in this industry is that November and December are probably going to look completely different than January and February. Like that's just a given, right? And I know there are going to be some of you out there that are going to say, well, not in my business. I stay completely booked all the time. Look, that's great for you. That's great. But the majority of salon and spa owners, we have a busy November and December. January and February are a little bit different. It's just how it is. When we know that's the case, why do we insist on running our business the same way during slower times as we do during our busiest times, or even vice versa? It's kind of messed up. So before everybody freaks out, I'm not saying that I want you to change everything or even do something super complicated this year in your business. I mean, just taking a look at what you're doing is all I want you to do and start kind of asking yourself, does all of this actually make sense when we know that we're going to be 10, 20, 30 times busier than we usually are, you know? If you knew you were about to have more people wanting appointments, would you automatically offer every single service on your menu? Like if you could actually prepare ahead of time, would you allow every single promotion or discount to continue to be used during that time? Would you keep every single meeting that you have on your calendar? I guess what I'm saying is it really the smartest business decision to keep every single thing exactly the same just because that's normally how you do things? In my opinion, it just doesn't make sense. I just think there are some really smart changes that we can all make during those few weeks that are going to make things better for our business, better for our team, and honestly, better for our sanity as well. And this is what I learned last year. Chandra, why do you think we do that before we get into the nitty gritty of it all? Like, why do we convince ourselves that just because we've always done something one way, we have to keep doing it that way all the time?
And I think you just kinda get stuck in that pattern, that rut. That's what you do every single year. It's the same every single year, and you just kinda keep doing the same things. So I think there's that, and then I think also, sometimes it's a stressful time of year for everybody, so it's like, do you really wanna think about making one more change or doing one more thing when you know you're already gonna be stressed out? So I think people avoid doing stuff that time of year because they just feel like it's gonna just add extra stress when I mean, it doesn't have to, but that's just kind of the mindset, I think, going into it. So, I think between those 2 things, just the same old thing, and they're afraid to change anything because everything's already crazy.
I agree with that. And I'm not going to lie, I had to fight with myself when I started working on these ideas last year in my salon. I am a creature of habit sometimes, like big time. Comfortability for me is really, really important. But I'm so glad that I didn't back down from making the changes that I made in my business. So I started by looking at all of the services on my menu and really focusing on the ones that were taking up just a ton of time on our schedule. And I sat there and I asked myself whether I really wanted those being done on some of the busiest weeks of the year. And it's not because they were bad services and not because I wanted to get rid of them permanently. I just knew that if I had services that were taking 4, 5, even 6 hours using a ton of product and they were tying up some of my best providers for half the day, I wanted to be really sure that I was utilizing our best use of time and services in November and December. And normally I don't do that. I allow our schedule to be booked the same like every single year. But this, I don't even know why this hit me to do. So there were services where I basically said, you know what, we're not booking these services during these specific weeks. If somebody wants one of these, sure, absolutely. We can book it for after the holidays. That's just how we're going to do it. And I'm not going to lie, I was really, really nervous about doing this because my brain automatically went to, are people going to be angry? Are they going to, leave the salon? But one thing that I did was I stood firm in that, and I didn't let that affect me because I knew I was doing this for a strategic reason and to help my employees and my business. So I stopped looking at just the price of the service and started looking at kind of what that appointment was actually costing and what it was taking up on our schedule. Here's the thing, a $400 service sounds great until it takes somebody 6 hours to do. I was thinking about this earlier, Chandra, because we had a coaching call yesterday, and one of our members was telling us that it takes one of his employees 3.5 hours to do a color retouch. That is something I would not allow during our busiest time of the year because we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we're doing that, right? And so that's kind of how I looked at my menu and my services. You know, if you didn't offer that one service for that period of time, you may be able to do 2, 3, even 4 more appointments in that same amount of time and bring in 3 or 4 times the amount of revenue when you really think about it. I did something very, very similar with some of the smaller services on our menu. So there were things that normally could be booked by themselves, right? We all have those. During Q4, I only wanted those specific services booked with other services. So almost packages of sorts, right? Instead of letting those smaller services take up just little times on the appointment book, I made it to where it had to be booked with those larger services. And again, this wasn't for forever, guys. This wasn't what I was going to turn my business into. I think that's what I want everybody to understand. I wasn't changing my whole business or saying, we don't do this anymore. I was just looking at the calendar and saying, for these few busy weeks, this is how we are going to do things and see how it works out. It worked amazing. We were able to use the schedule a lot better. We weren't trying to cram in every single type of appointment into our busiest time of year. Chandra, have you ever had a service in your business where you look at the price, you think it sounds great, but when you really look at maybe how long it takes somebody and everything that goes into it, you're like, okay, this is actually eating up a really huge chunk of our day.
Yeah, I mean, we've had definitely had services like that. I feel like that's, something we've nixed a lot of services like that and don't even offer them anymore because I'm like, this isn't even worth it. Like it's not even worth offering it if it's going to cost us money and we can't charge, $1,000 for this service or whatever. I know that's a crazy number. I just made that up, but just something like you can't charge always the amount that you might need to charge for a service to make it cost effective. And so, yeah, I definitely think so. And I think looking at when you look at your services the way that you're talking about and you start breaking down what they cost you and really looking at that, I mean, you have two options. You can either figure out how you can make it faster, or maybe you need to figure out some other strategy for taking those services or not taking those services.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important. And I think that's where you and I have really gotten away from, a lot of salon and spa owners out there are the a la carte way. They're still that a la carte way. And my salon is kind of to an extent still. There are certain things that are a la carte, but I've really kind of moved into almost that packaging type of way, and our revenue has increased while my employees are working less. And so it's been extremely, extremely beneficial for us. Now, I'm not saying everybody out there needs to go and do that, but I would recommend, like Chandra said, really taking a look at those and cutting some of those services that aren't benefiting you in any way. One of the other things that I really looked into, and I think this is an area that always gets crazy in salons, is add ons and upgrade menus. They are all over the place. I look at some of our members' menus for add ons and upgrades, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, where did they come up with all of those things? I always refer to it like as a cheesecake menu, right? Because that's one of the biggest menus out there and everything is on there. And that's what some of these look like. 2 years ago during the holiday season, I went into a nail place. I've been going to this place for like 9 years, and their add-on and upgrade menu, it had I counted them, 150 different things that you could add on. I was so overwhelmed looking at it, I didn't choose any of them because it was just ludicrous. There were way too many options, too many of the little upgrades, too many things to read through, and I was like, "Forget about it." Like, "No, I don't even want it." I remember that so clearly. And I knew that I didn't want that to happen in my business. And so I sat there and looked at things, and ours definitely wasn't 150 long, but we still had way too many of those things showing up. And I think it was confusing our clients, and I think a lot of them were saying no because of that. I just think we try to convince ourselves that more options are automatically going to make us more money, and sometimes the exact opposite happens. If your client has to sit there and sort through like this giant list while they're trying to decide what actually makes sense for them, they may just say no to all of it, even. If somebody's on your website and they're seeing all this crap, they may just say no and move on to the next salon. You also have to think about your team. They are dealing with the same thing. If you give them 12 or 15 things that you want them to talk about during the busiest time of the year, how many of those do you really think they are going to remember to recommend consistently? If they have a list of 5, they're going to remember those 5 and recommend them to almost every client. Chandra, do you think sometimes we overcomplicate this because we do think a bigger menu automatically gives us more chances to sell something?
Yeah, I think we think that. I think we also think we get ideas like, "Oh, that would be so nice to offer in the salon. Oh, let's have this and let's have that." And it sounds nice in your head, but when you actually put it to practical use, most of the time it's not. Most of the time, like you said, the clients are like, "Why do I even want that?" Your team doesn't want to sell it because there's too much stuff for them to remember and it's overwhelming. I think that's exactly what happens. I think we're just like more and more and more. The more I can offer, the more I can make and the more I can have, and so it's like But that usually is the exact opposite. I think that's when people do opt out completely because they're like, Nah, that just sounds like too much work." Like, there's too many things to even think about.
Yeah. I mean, as a business owner, as somebody who's been in the industry for decades, I don't even want to mess with that at all. Like, how can I ask my team to do that? Well, last year, I ended up just choosing five. We went in all in on like five add ons. They were quick to perform. They made us really good money. They didn't completely screw up the timing of the appointment. And they were super, super easy for my team to explain. And it worked out great for us. Like our add ons were up like 80%. That's massive in Q4. That's massive during any time, really. And then I really made sure that my team knew exactly who those upgrades made sense for. So I went back into training mode almost in the way that I delivered those to my team. I didn't want them just asking, every single client, do you want to add this? Do you want to add that? Because then it just starts sounding like they're trying to upsell everybody just for the sake of upselling. I want them to be able to look at the client in front of them and know this would actually make sense for you today, and here is the reason why. The reality is, the simpler that you make it, the easier it is for the team to actually do it. That is always going to be rule one, I think, when you have employees. They don't have to remember all of this crap. They know the few things to focus on. They don't, you know, get nervous about talking about them or anything like that. That whole salesy thing that everybody wants to steer away from, that's not an issue when you actually do it this way. I don't know. I just think we have to be smart. You know, you are going to have more people coming through the business during Q4. You need to capitalize on those appointments strategically in a way that is actually going to benefit the client in every way possible. Instead of just trying to cram more people onto your books, you need to capitalize on each and every single person that comes in. Chandra, how do you feel about me having, just like a five add on menu thing and retraining my team in that way?
I think it's really smart. I mean, we kinda do the same thing. I don't remember exactly how many we have, but I know it's not much more than 5. But, yeah, we kinda do the same thing because I just I think it's just easier, and if you have a front desk team or, an AI front desk or whatever, you can program those things to sell those add-ons too, and if you have too many, that makes it impossible for your front desk or for, something like that to work on those services, or even online booking, because even most online booking sites will recommend an add-on service with a service when it's finalizing, it'll pop them up and show them like, do you want to add one of these on at the end? And if there's 500 things, they're going to just skip it. So I agree 100%. And we can do the same thing, and then the team again feels confident when they're talking about it, because if they can just focus on a few things, that makes their job a lot easier too.
Yeah, 100%. I think bringing up the front desk in that was a great add on too, because that does make it so much easier for them. And a lot of our front desk people, if it's not AI, some of them aren't in the industry. They don't understand all of the services that we do and all of those things. So for them to learn five, maybe even 10 of those add ons, they can definitely do that in a very quick time period. But if you've got 150, there's no way that's going to happen. So I also did kind of the same thing with retail. And this was pretty different for me because usually we had like tables where people could like choose their own packages and things of that nature. We still offered that, but we really, really focused last year. So instead of putting like a million different things in front of people for the holiday season, I kind of narrowed down what we were actually going to feature and talk about when it came to our retail. Few really good, maybe giftable options, I would say. A few products we knew that people already loved, and that was pretty much it. So I had bundles and they were very, very strategic. I wanted it to be easy, once again, for my team to talk about, but I also wanted it to be easy for the client to say yes, for the client to buy it. I didn't want somebody standing at the front desk trying to decide between, 15 different bundles that we had had in years past. I wanted them to be able to look at just three or four really good options and say, yep, that's the one that I'm going to take. And so we went through like our specific services, our most popular ones, and built bundles off of that. And it worked out really, really well. Really well. Another thing that I looked at last year was all of our promotions and discounts that we had floating around out there. One thing salon and spa owners are notorious for is not turning those ads off when they have ads and promotions going. And I am just like all of you. I forget about that sometimes. This one kind of makes me laugh a little bit because some of them were things that we had like created a long, long time ago. Some of them we had created during maybe slower periods, just to get people in the door. But I ended up making a very clear decision for myself and my team. I did not allow promotions or discounts at all during Q4. If we were already going into one of the busiest times of the year, I didn't see any reason to keep discounting services when the demand was already there. This is the first year that we had done that. Before I would have, said, yes, we are going to honor that, or no, we didn't. This is exactly why, if you have promotions or offers or ads or whatever running throughout the year, it is so important that you put something at the bottom that says some exclusions may apply. You have to have that because otherwise you can end up with somebody pulling out an offer that you created, months ago, and you can even forget about it and you have to honor it if you don't have something like that. So you have to make sure you have the ability to say, hey, this isn't valid during these dates without it becoming a major issue, but we can get you scheduled for January, February, whatever it is. One of the best things I did was getting rid of those ads, promotions, discounts during Q4. Chandra, why do you think salon owners do all of that? Why do we create something to solve one problem and then we just keep it running maybe forever, even when that problem doesn't exist anymore? Number one. And how do you feel about discounts and promotions being used in your salon during Q4?
Yeah, I mean, I think people just don't think about it. I think they forget about those ads and promotions. I think that they just keep them running because there's always that, like, scarcity mindset too, like, what if it's not as busy or, like, I think they just forget and they don't think about turning those things off. It's kinda I don't know, I think it's just one of those side thoughts and I think they just don't even think about it. And I think putting exclusions on those promotions and discounts that time of year is a great idea. I mean, as you were saying that, I think I was thinking about, certain coupons that I get from restaurants or, stores and things like that. And a lot of times they have blackout months on there. It'll say like, this is not valid during December or not valid during this time. And so I hadn't actually thought about that before, and I think that's a great idea. I think that's definitely something that we will implement for this year too is making those things excluded. You can't use those during those months because those are the months you don't need them, right? That's when you put those in place for the slow months and then you're losing more money during that time of year if you do give them away because people are going to pay their regular prices anyways that time of year. So,
Yeah, that's the thing that we noticed is that even if somebody had one of those discounts or promotions, they ended up booking anyway during the holiday season because they wanted to get their hair done. And so it did not affect us in any way, shape, or form. Now we did honor it. If it was for a first time client and they wanted to come back in 3 months after the busy holiday season, we honored that for them. And we didn't have to do that, but that's just something that we did. But yes, I think that is a really important thing to look at. And then one of the last things that I did had absolutely nothing to do with clients, but I started looking at all the crap that we were still trying to do internally as a team during Q4 and all of the craziness that kind of came with it, like meetings, projects, things that I wanted to work on, things my team was doing that technically needed to get done, at some point, but it made no sense for them to do it during Q4. And I made what we called a kill list. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but that's what we called it. So anything that wasn't necessary for us to run the business, to take care of our clients, to take care of our team, or to make money during those busy weeks, we just put on hold until after the holidays. Because again, we were trying to figure out how to make Q4 easier without automatically solving everything by, adding more hours or more days or just expecting everybody to somehow try to find more energy because it's impossible during that time. This was actually really hard for me to do, Chandra, because I'm the type of person I will come up with a really cool idea. You know me, and I decide, oh my gosh, we got to do this like right now, like right now. Meanwhile, nobody is really asking for it, and nothing bad is going to happen if it waits another 6 weeks. And I know this in my brain, but that's not how my brain works. I don't know. I did not want to put all of that on my team and all the extra on me during that time because the whole plan was to create, more time that we could utilize to make more money, not to just add crap that we didn't need. So those were kind of the things that I stopped. Some meetings didn't end up happening. Some projects got pushed back until Q1 of the next year. There were things I wanted to implement that I just had to tell myself, nope, like we can come back to this at some other point in time. Set a reminder on your phone. It'll pop up when it's time. That's just how it is. And honestly, I think for me, that was probably one of the biggest things that I learned in doing all of this. Sometimes making Q4 easier, it has nothing to do with figuring out how to fit more into each and every day. Sometimes you just need to stop doing the crap that does not need to be done right then and now. Chandra, do you ever catch yourself doing things like this? Like, you know, the business is about to get crazy, right? But somehow you still have 3 projects that you're trying to finish. You've got meetings on the calendar. You've got some random thing that you decided absolutely has to be done before the end of the year. And you're like, do I do it? Do I not?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is something actually that I do, and I am pretty good about it. Like, we don't book any we have mastery classes that everybody's part of. We don't book any in Q4. We don't book any meetings. We don't even have an all team staff meeting in Q4. We have one at the end of Q3, like to prepare for Q4, but we don't do any staff meetings. We don't do any projects, like, pretty much the same thing. Like, I know it's gonna be crazy, and I just want everybody to get through the holidays and get through their own craziness and not put any more on their plate. So, I think for quite a few years, and probably because 'cause I've learned over the years when we've tried to do stuff, it's usually a disaster because nobody can get it done. And so, we just the last 3 months of the year are just like a wash when it comes to any of that kinda stuff.
It was great for me. It was one of the least stressed holiday seasons in the salon I have ever had. And so I know going into this year, I am going to do the exact same thing. Like I said, it's really hard for me because my brain, you know how I am, like it pops up with these ideas and I'm like busting it out like immediately because I'm always scared that I'm going to forget if I don't, get it done. So I've just started creating voice notes. I keep them. They stay in my phone, my iPad, whatever I've got. And then I go back through them in January and I'll say that. I'll be like, remind you for January 31st or whatever it is, and so that it'll pop back up. But yeah, definitely, I recommend this to every single salon and spa owner out there. Do what Chandra does, do what I do, nothing extra during that time at all. I mean, we all know by the time December gets here, there is one thing that you can pretty much guarantee is going to happen, right? Somebody's going to call, somebody's going to text, DM, whatever, and ask if you can just squeeze them in before the holiday season. And this is something that I want all of you guys to think about. I know myself and my team well enough to know that if we wait until the exact moment to decide what we are going to do when that happens, we are going to cave every single time. My team is going to add hours onto their day. They're going to add a day in the salon that I don't want them to add. And they do that because they don't want to feel bad or guilty, right? The clients tend to give us sob stories all the time, and we just kind of fall for them. They have family pictures, they've got whatever it is, and our brains just start trying to figure out how can we rearrange our entire freaking salon to accommodate people. Well, that is something that I wanted to handle differently last year. I went back and pulled our numbers, Chandra, like scheduling numbers hour wise of what my team worked, like the 5 years prior. It was ridiculous. My girls don't work that many hours and they were literally killing themselves. And I was not happy about it at all. So before we got into the busiest part of Q4, we, meaning my team and I, we decided on a list. What are we willing to do and what are we not willing to do? So we created our Q4 boundary list and we held each other to it. We knew if we were okay adding, one day during that time, maybe 2 at the most to our schedules. We knew we were okay staying a little bit late these 3 days of the month or whatever that looked like. We knew where our line was, and it was one of the best things that we ever did because their hours were awesome. It was awesome. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't make any exceptions last year because, of course, there were times where something absolutely made sense. We could make it work. We did it. But I didn't want my team taking every last minute request and turning it into this whole emotional decision where we were having, to beg each other to stay late or to skip something that we had planned with our families or to come in on our day offs or whatever that is. I just did not want that to happen. I'm telling you, when I say this was huge for my team and I, it was. And this is something that we will continue doing every year moving forward. Knowing that we had already made those decisions, that boundary list, it kept us from having to rethink them every time somebody asked. And that was so important. Our brains are exhausted. We fall for the emotional crap. Chandra, why do you think it's so freaking hard for us to just say no when somebody calls with this whole, I know you're booked, but is there any way type of story that they give us?
I mean, I think our industry is just full of a lot of people pleasers, and I think it's hard for us to say no. And like as you were saying that, I was thinking, if I did this in my salon, what would this look like? And I was like, well, I have a very divided team. Like I have a team, not divided in a bad way, but I have like a divided team that'll they set boundaries anyways. They know their work life balance. They're very protective of that. They're very careful. And then I have another half of my team that will literally work from 6 a.m. to midnight and come in like every single day and figure out like how they can get every single person in for those, situations. And I was like, I don't know if I could get those ones to create that boundary because I've tried sometimes and they're like, nope, it's about my clients. I want to get my clients in. And I get it because I worked behind the chair a long time too. And I loved my clients. I had them for 20 plus years. They would, I would make exceptions here and there sometimes, like you said, when it made sense. But you have to protect that work life balance, I think, especially nowadays. The mental health crisis is real. Everybody has a meltdown over, every little thing. So you have to be really careful. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's not something that I've ever done, partially because I'm like, okay, well, you work however you work. Like, that's on you. Like, I'm not making you do that. Right. But I mean, I think it's a good conversation to have. I think it's a good idea because it does affect the person even if they don't think it does or they keep doing it over and over again. Eventually it does take a toll on you. And I think that is something really important to help your team with to keep them level-headed and happy through that season instead of flat on the floor.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, husbands, family members, they said that there was a drastic difference in the individuals on my team throughout that year. They were able to just, enjoy the holiday time with their family more. They were more well rested, not so just completely dragged out and broken down. So definitely something I would think about. I had people on my team too at first that kind of pushed back, but that's the reason that we did make our exceptions list. And so they knew they still had opportunity, right? Like I can do this maybe once a week or twice a week, or I can do that. So it really, really worked out for us well. Okay. One of the last things that I changed last year, and some of you out there are going to roll your eyes at this, but it probably meant more to my team than anything else that we did. We created blackout services for each and every one of my providers. And this came from me really thinking about what Q4 feels like when you are the person actually standing behind the chair. During this time, the clients are stressed, they're rushing, they're trying to get everywhere and do everything. Sometimes they're not exactly the nicest version of themselves. That's just the honest reality. And by the time you get even a few weeks into that holiday rush, your team is exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally in a lot of ways. So I wanted to give my team just a little bit of control over what their days looked like during that time. So I let each person choose a very small number of services that they really just don't enjoy doing that much or they knew that took a lot out of them when they did those. And we blocked out those services for each and every provider in Q4. Now, obviously, I did not say, great, pick everything that you hate doing and you're never going to have to do any of that again. Like, no, they still had to perform a very good variety of services and do their job. But if there were a few things, somebody absolutely dreaded, I could take those off of their schedule for just a few weeks without hurting the business in any way. And I was willing to do that. Honestly, this ended up being one of those decisions that made a way bigger impact than I ever expected. The morale throughout Q4 was better than it probably had ever been before. They were still tired because, I mean, it's Q4. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But there was a noticeable difference. And I think a big part of that was simply because they had some say so in what those weeks looked like for them instead of just feeling like everything was being piled up on them all the time. Sometimes we don't realize that's how our team feels. And they don't it's not that they don't feel comfortable telling us, they want to make money, and so they're willing to push themselves, but I think like Chandra said earlier, sometimes we have to be the person that helps them set those boundaries. It's really, really important. Chandra, do you think sometimes as owners, we do forget how freaking hard Q4 can be for the person that's standing behind the chair because we are so focused on the numbers and the schedule and all those things, especially for those of us owners who aren't behind the chair at all anymore.
Yeah, I think it is easy to sometimes forget that, or you do get hung up in the business side and you kind of don't even think about the other side, right? And so, I mean, I always try to go back to my days behind the chair during that time of year and be like, all right, what was that like? Yeah, I remember that. That sucked. That was hard. That was, kind of crazy. And so I think, and it's even harder for the owners that are behind the chair, right? Because then you're cranking behind the chair, but you're also trying to keep this part going. So you're just telling your team, like, keep working, get busy, get busy, get busy, because you're just trying to handle everything. And so I think you lose sight of that sometimes and you kind of forget.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you feel about the blackout services? Now, here's the thing. When my team was making their list, they actually only took maybe 2 services off each, but it didn't affect our numbers at all because they were still booked out completely, right? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it could be good. I mean, I think that would be like a perk just for your team. I'm sure that some of my team members would love it if I let them do that. So, might be something to test out, and see. But yeah, I mean, I think if anything that keeps your team motivated and happy throughout that time of year, I think is worth doing because they do get burnt out. They do get tired. They do probably feel like they want to quit sometimes even when they're really good just because they're so distressed and hit that point. And so anything you can do to give them a little boost, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, guys. So, one of the questions that Chandra and I get asked all the time when we share ideas on the podcast is okay, how do I actually put some of this into action in my salon or spa? So, normally we would kind of walk you through the steps that you need to take, but this strategy worked so freaking well for me last year. We actually created a free Q4 checklist for you guys. So, it's going to walk you through like the steps you can take if you want to try some of this stuff, the steps with your service menu, your add on menu, your retail, all of that stuff. You can absolutely go to our website and grab that, or you can find it in the description of this podcast. I really think it will benefit you and your team in so many ways. I would highly, highly recommend grabbing that. Chandra, anything you would add for somebody who maybe wants to try some or all of these steps in their business?
I mean, I think it's really just kind of going through what maybe don't implement all these things, right? Because, it's it's a lot, but pick like one or two things and just figure out like what's going to be the best for your business and for your team and just start, putting that into play. I mean, I think it's something that you have to start early because, obviously books are already open, right? And so if you're going to make any of those kind of changes, I think it's something that, maybe even talk to your team, be like, what do you guys think? Like, what would you guys like out of these things that we could maybe try and get them aligned with it? And I think those would be some good ways to start.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, guys, before we wrap up, let's get into our listener question for today. This one came in from Shelby in Odessa, Texas, and she says, if you had to start over today and build a salon again from scratch, what is one thing you would do completely differently than you did the first time? I think this is a good one. Honestly, I think my answer now would be completely different than what it was even 3 years ago. I could probably take an hour answering this, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet for me. And then I want to hear from you, Chandra. So I think one of the biggest things that I would probably do differently is I would build the business around what I wanted my company to become. I don't feel like I did that the first time around. So instead of building everything around what kind of made sense for me in that exact moment, those are the steps that I take. I would not do that at all. I think when you're starting a business, it is really, really easy to make decisions based on just what you need in the moment. You need clients, you need money, you need employees, whatever that is, right? You need those things or you need one of those things specifically. I think I definitely made plenty of decisions that solved the problem that was sitting directly in front of me. But I think I created way more problems for myself like 6 months down the road or a year down the road than I could have ever imagined. So I would just focus on those things, I think. And I would also focus day one on my numbers and profitability and make sure everything that I had was built to create true freedom and true success, not the version of freedom and success that the beauty industry, tries to sell us, but true freedom and success. Chandra, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think mine would be sort of similar, but I feel like for me, the biggest thing that I wish I had had when I started would have been more, I guess, kind of more understanding of numbers and understanding what the budgeting looked like, because I feel like we struggled for a lot of years just trying to guess and throw this at this and this at that. And it was something that was, probably could have taken us under several times. So I wish I would have had more knowledge of that. And also, I think more of the systems in place before I hired employees and before I started stuff like that, because I feel like over the years we had to kind of restart over several times just to implement these things because we didn't have it and we didn't know and we didn't understand what we needed. And so I think just having more structure, I guess, when we had first started, because I think that's something that a lot of salons open without. And, that's why our industry struggles so bad. So that would have been very helpful. If I was starting over, I wouldn't even open those doors until I had some sort of structure.
We've seen that happen so many times that I think that is probably a great idea. So, yeah. All right, guys. So last year was the first time I really stopped going into Q4 thinking, okay, how much more can we possibly do? We were still busy as crap. We still worked our freaking butts off. We made excellent money, though. The difference was we weren't piling a bunch of extra crap on top of an already crazy season just because we thought that was the only way to make the most amount of money. I'm telling you guys, making those decisions kept us from really feeling like the business was beating the crap out of us for 2 months straight. That is the worst feeling. The reality is, for most of us, Q4 is going to be Q4. Clients are going to wait until the last minute to book, right? People are going to ask you to squeeze them in all the time. The schedule is going to be super tight. Everybody is going to be more tired, and there's just going to be more pressure on the business overall. We already know all of that is coming. Like, it's a no brainer. But I think because we also know Q4 is one of our biggest opportunities of the year to make the most amount of money, our automatic response is to just pile more on ourselves, our team, our business, and all of those things. And it screws us over 9 times out of 10. It really does. Last year really showed me that we could make better use of what we were already doing, cut some of the crap that did not need to be there, and still have an amazing Q4 financially without making everybody completely freaking miserable in the process. If you're out there and you're sitting there thinking, okay, I get it, but now I need to actually figure out what that looks like in my business, that is exactly why we made that Q4 checklist for you. You can grab it in the description of this episode, or you can head over to our website, thebeautybizagency.com, and you will find it right there under our free resources. So make sure you grab that. If you want more help than just the checklist, that is exactly the kind of work that we help salon and spa owners with every single day at the Beauty Biz Agency. While you're on the website, you can check out our coaching options, or you can book a free strategy call and salon audit with our team. I promise you, it'll be the best 45 minutes of your day. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with another salon or spa owner that you think will enjoy it. And if you have a free second, make sure that you leave us a review. It really does help other salon and spa owners find the show. And definitely make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of the awesome stuff that we have coming up. Chandra, how can our listeners keep up with everything we have going on at the Beauty Biz Agency?
Make sure you're following us on all social media channels at the Beauty Biz Agency on Instagram and Facebook, and the Beauty Biz Mentors on TikTok. And definitely send us a message. Let us know if there's any questions you would like us to answer on the air.
Absolutely. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Beauty Biz Breakdown. Until next time, stop trying to survive Q4 by doing more. Get smart, cut the crap that doesn't need to be there, and make this the year December doesn't kick your freaking butt. Now go out there, make bank, run the show, and ditch that chair. And as always, keep slaying those business goals with a whole lot of swagger. If this episode lit a fire under you, don't just walk away and let it die out. Deep down, you already know where you want your business and your life to go. And the truth is, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is a real plan to get you there. That's exactly what we help you build. So if you're ready to stop trying to figure it out on your own, head to thebeautybizagency.com and book your free strategy call. That call can give you the clarity that you've been needing and a real plan to move your business forward. Because at the end of the day, the only thing standing between you and the salon business you've been dreaming about is whether or not you're willing to take the action and the steps in order to build it.